Hi and welcome to this third video in the series about genes and genetic testing, and today we're going to continue with some more exam questions. And so this exam question here: cystic fibrosis is a genetic disorder caused by one of a number of possible gene mutations. Prenatal testing can be used to determine whether or not a fetus has cystic fibrosis. Now, one method of prenatal testing, and explain how it can be used to detect cystic fibrosis. So you have a choice of two here. The first one is amniocentesis. And basically you need to explain how it's done. So you have to explain that the amniotic fluid is removed from the mother using a syringe, and that you can then test the embryonic cells that are in there from the fetus, and you can test them to see whether there is a specific defect present. And so essentially any three from those five. The other test that can be done is the chorionic villus sampling. And that's where you remove some of the chorionic villus cells or the placental tissue from the womb, and therefore those again, the DNA can be analysed and they're used to detect the specific gene that you're looking for. Okay, so part B, describe one benefit and one risk to a pregnant woman of prenatal testing. And so you can get several different marks here, and so you need to explain one benefit and then essentially one risk. So one of the benefits that you could basically talk about is the major benefit of having the test done is it gives you information about possible genetic conditions or abnormalities, and so this gives you therefore time to consider your options. It can give you an option about whether you're going to have a termination, it can give you peace of mind, something along those lines. So the risks that could be involved here, one of them, there's a possibility of the miscarriage. And so obviously if you had the test, you found that it was, for instance, negative, so it tested negative for the actual condition, and then you lost the embryo or the fetus because of the procedure, obviously that's a risk involved there. Also the fact that you might get a false positive or a false negative, and therefore you make the incorrect decision. So for instance, if you have a positive result on the test, so let's say we're testing for cystic fibrosis, and you therefore get a positive and you decide to terminate on that basis, and then obviously if you get the false positive, you might have acted and there's nothing you can do to take that back. Or finally, you might actually cause damage or harm to the fetus by doing this, and therefore you cause it other subsequent health issues. How this one is different to this one is simply down to the fact that the test may cause other complications, as opposed to this one, which talks about having the test done, and then as a result of having the test you can therefore cause a termination. And finally, discuss either one ethical or one social issue relating to the use of prenatal testing. So there are a number of different things that you can mention here, and so the first one is, obviously this is an ethical issue, the idea that the fetus is living and therefore abortion is wrong, or it's implying that it's murder in a sense, and so going into detail would get you the marks here. Another alternative here, your question in the social issue is who has the right to decide if the test should be performed, and therefore what are the implications over what's then done next, or potentially over the costs of these types of tests being done. Obviously there are issues of confidentiality of the parents of the child, and obviously if that's for instance, if it shows up an abnormality or a genetic condition, then who has the right to know what within that family. Another reason might be that if you find the abnormality, or if you find a genetic condition, this could pose problems within the future. So for instance, if it's common knowledge and that people know that you have a genetic condition, it may affect things to do with insurance or future employment. Another reasoning might be if you didn't fully understand the prenatal testing and the risks involved, and therefore the potential harm to the child that could be caused, or potential risk of miscarriage. And finally, whether anybody has the right to have a say for the fetus, and therefore you're denying them an opportunity to live. And so an ethical point along those lines